Oh, hi, friend. Welcome back. Today I'm sharing 12, I don't know, maybe 14 or 16 positive spreads that you can try in your bullet journal or your art journal or your junk journal, anywhere that you like to do some writing. So let's get started. That's the intro. The first one is just a pretty standard gratitude spread. This is how I started my positive journaling practice. And I like to call it positive journaling because it allows me the freedom to interpret that however feels right to me at the time that I feel the need for journaling. Gratitude is not always easy to find, so my pages are not always going to be this full. Sometimes I will just do something like this where I just write one quote. This is why I like to consider them positive pages, because they're up for interpretation. So for example, here, I literally just wrote one statement and let myself be at peace with the white space on the other side. And in fact, I actually think the white space looks nice. It almost feels like you're looking at a really snow-covered background. Another idea is to do some affirmation work. And in this spread, as you can tell, the positive page is really just one-sided versus a two-page spread, which you saw in the previous two. And then the other one has a mood tracker. So even going into my monthly setup, I already knew that I was kind of feeling a little bit challenged mentally. And so I thought that it would be beneficial for me to do an affirmation spread, just do other positive things that are sort of like gratitude adjacent. I think when I'm feeling really down or really anxious, affirmations are one of my first coping tools that I reach for. My favorite thing about bullet journaling is the flexibility and the option to completely change it up the moment that you turn the page. And so if last month I was doing a two-page spread for gratitude, I in no way feel obligated to do a two-page spread this month or any other month after. Another positive page idea that I like to do is to have some memory pages. And every year on my kids' birthdays, I always do a birthday page for them to sort of celebrate a moment or a person. You can see, as an example, my daughters as well. I love adding quotes. I keep a quote board on my Pinterest account. Usually when I find a quote that I feel like I can relate to or that's really speaking to what I'm feeling, I spend some time hand lettering it. Hand lettering is something that I find to be peaceful and enjoyable because it forces me to slow down. If you're familiar with handwriting, that you know that speed is like the enemy of hand lettering. So you are forced to slow down to create the shapes that make the letters. And that slowing down and the focus and the concentration, all of that work that you're doing to focus on writing is taking your brain away from possible negative thoughts that you might be having or negative dialogue that's not making you feel good. So I consider this to be a very peaceful practice. I really love mandalas. And I used to, when I first started bullet journaling, I used to make mandalas like almost every day. I wish I hadn't thrown away my sketchbooks. But before I learned how to hand letter, this is what I would do to relax. I would watch tutorials on YouTube and slow down the pace. And then just follow whatever they were doing to practice mandalas. I consider this to be a positive practice because of the slow pace, the concentration. It's like a problem-solving activity. It really just like gets the wheels of your brain turning in a positive way. When I created this mandala, I found that there were a lot of parallels between creating a mandala and life. And so I just decided to list those things that I noticed while I was creating this. So it felt very much like meditative and almost medicinal. If you are the praying kind, then maybe you would like to create a prayer spread if there's something that you need to get out of your mind and something that's been really worrying you, or maybe you have a positive prayer. Those are nice too. I find that whenever I pray that it's difficult for me to not get distracted by my surroundings or noise or just my own mental noise. So when I want to have like what feels like a productive prayer, then I tend to just write it down because my brain slows down when I write. This is one of my favorite positive spreads. The pile is getting taller, so let's move back. This I did during the pandemic. I think we were kind of knee deep in the pandemic, like in the beginning. And really, I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't really do much. And I think I was trying to point out to myself some of the things that I love, even if they weren't all things that I could currently control. Like I probably couldn't go to an art store or go to a craft store or get a facial or a manicure at a place, but I could do my own facial and manicure. I could take a long shower. I could read a good book. I could journal. I could probably look back at some of my favorite travels, go on YouTube, paint. So I kind of did this to bring some positivity into my thoughts. And of course, illustrating it is just what I prefer to do because that's just my coping mechanism. But you could also just write a title and then just make a list for both of these spreads. But again, I enjoy drawing, and drawing helps me slow down my mind and curb any kind of negative dialogue. And so this, I wanted to pick all of my favorite things to wear, mainly because I was trying to encourage myself to get dressed, let's be real. And so this spread came about, and I find this to be a very positive spread and super helpful. The next idea is a spread just for giving yourself a break about things. I strongly encourage this one. Anybody can literally have like these negative, intrusive thoughts. And this is a really good way to combat them by telling yourself that everything is okay. It's okay if your kid irritates you. It's okay if you forget the last time you took a shower. It's okay if you don't feel like doing anything. It's okay to not have it all figured out yet. Sometimes I really need spreads like these to just give myself a stinking break. I also need spreads where I have room for private journaling. I have a video about this, so I won't go into it too much, but I consider this to be one of the most positive spreads that I create in my bullet journal, and I highly encourage you to try it if you haven't already. Another thing that I would encourage you to explore is maybe grief journaling. This is a spread, or a page rather, that I created to remember my grandmother who passed away last January. And this is a painting that I did with gouache, and it is of a memory that I have of she and I sharing a special moment under the shade of a big palm tree next to her house. I also did this illustration, which is meant to be sort of like a likeness of her, or at least that's what it was meant to be, but I think it ended up being more so a likeness of me dressed as her, which I think is really kind of interesting how that revealed itself this way. I'm like an intuitive artist. I struggle to say that word, but in that I never really know exactly what's going to come out. I may have an idea, but I never know. But you can achieve this with pictures. You can achieve this with just words, but just creating a space for you to process the grief of the loss of someone that meant a lot to you. So I think it's interesting. It looks more like me dressed as her, but I am her descendant. So I feel like the story goes on with me. I feel like that's how I'm seeing this painting now. Another thing that I like to do is to document things that my kids say. And in this case, I used this page to celebrate all of the silly jokes that my son was telling me that week. He's got a joke almost every day. I could probably fill a journal with his jokes. But this is a fun way to have some positivity in your pages. Write down something funny that you heard someone say. It doesn't have to be your kid. It could just be you walking by a stranger and hearing them say something. Like today when I was walking to Target, I heard someone just randomly say, "You're just always being so toxic." That might not be a joke, but it was just such a random thing for me to hear as I was passing them. So, write about that. Write about how that made you giggle and how maybe it made you wonder what was it that was so toxic about that person, because I want to know. Give me the tea. Let's move some of this over. I like to spend some time doodling in my bullet journal. This probably is a shock to no one. It's time well spent, in my opinion. What I usually do is that I go to Pinterest and I look up easy line drawings or something like that, or easy botanical drawings. The key word is the easy part. And then a lot of times they have little tutorials that have like the 4 steps so that you can know where to start and how to continue. So if you look at this whole spread and you're going, oh no, there's no way I can do this, I challenge you. And I rebuke that. Just trust me on this. You're going to type in the search bar, easy flower drawing, or step-by-step flower drawing, whatever. And you're going to sit down and give yourself the opportunity to not get it right the first time around. Just accept that. And then once you accept that, just get to drawing. And then no matter what you create, color it anyway. Just color it. Just because the color will make it look fun. Some of these are kind of wonky on their own, and if they weren't colored, I don't think I would like this spread as much. I probably did this over the course of like a day or two. You also don't have to finish it in one seating. One more illustration. Again, this could also be achieved with magazines or pictures, but in my case, since I like to draw and paint, my intention was to document a blessing that my grandmother always said to me whenever I left the house. And I wanted to hand letter the blessing and then kind of represent each of us. So this is meant to be a likeness of my grandmother, clearly a younger version of herself, a likeness of my mom, who was a retired nurse, a likeness of a young version of myself, and a likeness of my daughter. I find it really interesting that they all sort of look like they're the same person in 4 different roles. And I feel like my therapist might think that there's a reason for that. But yes, this was a really nice positive spread to create to honor the maternal line of my family. All right, we've reached the last spread. And if you've made it this far, you are obligated to comment down below that you've made it this far. And please tell me which one of these was your favorite. The last one is a newsworthy spread. And as you can see, either nothing was newsworthy in my life at the time, or I never filled it out. Pretty sure it was the second, because there's always something newsworthy, because there's always something going on. But I don't know, when did I do this? 2016, 2017. So it's not like I can blame it on the pandemic. I don't know why I didn't fill it out, but I still love this spread. I always think to myself, I really should bring this back and do this again. I think this would make a great spread for an annual review. I think it would make a great gratitude spread, whatever you consider to be newsworthy, and you can change it, but it's meant to look like the front page of a newspaper, and we've got some spots for either stickers or pictures or printables or illustrations, and you've also got spots for documenting and journaling. All right, guys, you really have done the work of being here this long, and I believe we did about 16 or 17 ideas across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Ooh. We didn't even do my current bullet journal. Aha, my current journal has something. An inspiration board, guys. This is probably the most positive of all the positive spreads that you can create in your bullet journal. I don't know which one is the most positive. I can't pick, but I just did this year with a group of ladies that came to my house, and we sat together and we made inspiration boards for ourselves. We had breakfast and we talked and we vented and we created. And this is the one that I created for myself, my 2023 vision board, my first ever, in fact. And I'm excited about it. So anyway, guys, if you've made it this far, you really You really love me. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. I hope that you found one of these spreads to be something that you would like to try, but I'll leave you here until next time. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like so that the algorithm shows this to somebody else that might need to see it. Bye. I started practicing gratitude in my bullet journal over 6 years ago when I started bullet journaling, and it's probably the one of the top 3 most meaningful spreads that I set up in my monthly setup month after month. Whether it gets filled 100% or not is irrelevant to me. I just like to be able to have the space to pour out some positive thoughts, because I wholly believe that it is so good for our emotional well-being to find time to find the good in our lives.